let's get into chat. A live board meeting. Welcome everyone. This is exciting. Glad that we're all back. I can't tell. Is there someone?
Is it delayed?
Do we have somebody?
I'm trying to just see what it's gonna look like. It's
Okay.
still saying waiting for ECS board.
It's live, maybe refresh.
We're working out the kinks.
Isn't that the way?
I'll log off and back on and see.
Are we able to tell?
It
who's
tells me I
joining?
have
That's what I was,
two.
oh, there we go. So Ben, this gives you an idea. So when you talk, it should see if it goes to you. So say something.
Say something. Say anything. Welcome to the board meeting. All right, there we
All
go.
right.
All right, very cool.
So just so everyone has visibility, that little camera moves around when you talk.
All right.
So it looks like it's on a delay.
Slight.
That's all right.
Good to know, in case you need to edit something out.
Yeah, just hit the crash button.
Did you say a bad word?
Well, anyway, welcome to the April board meeting. Thanks, everybody. Excited to be back. I guess we will start with a quick roll call. We have, now that I can see everybody in front of me, this is a lot easier. It looks like we have 8 board members, and I know we have a 9th coming as well. So we have Angela, Adam, Lisa, Meryl, Michael, Sapna, and Kristen. So thank you, myself. We'll start with a pledge of allegiance. Flag behind us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will read off the ECS mission and vision. Our mission, the mission of ECS is to educate each student to high academic standards using innovative curricula that will foster knowledge, love of, and respect for the environment and preserve it for future generations. We grow citizens. Our vision is that every ECS graduate will be an actively engaged citizen driving thoughtful change in the world around them. I understand we have a couple of guests listening in, so welcome if you can hear us out there. Giving this a try. If there's any technical glitches or anything like that, please let us know after the fact. We'd love to correct anything if anything is not working well. And I don't think we had anyone sign up for public comment, so we can move on to the consent agenda. By the way, does everybody have a copy of the agenda in front of them?
I didn't grab one on my way, that's okay. Thanks, Beth.
Does anybody have anything in the consent agenda they want to bring out to discuss? No? All right.
The open literacy, is that for an annual, the $100,000, or is that
That's summer tutoring and.
upcoming summer?
Yeah, this coming summer. And also a books program for first through 8th graders. And also coding for middle school and high school and kindergarten programming.
And the Cedar Point, does that include the money that the families are paying? Or this is
No,
just
that's
expenditure
just-
by ECS in
yes.
addition?
That's a field trip of some sort, I assume.
Is
For
that certain,
two-night field trip,
for
Wow.
what grade, like
8th grade.
all of 8th grade?
Very cool. And
Your
what
mom's house, is that,
Yes, so there's Hip Hop Unlock, that's a cultural dance program for our middle school students.
and remind me,
Dr.
Michelle,
Stein was that like a athletic coach?
That's-
Executive?
That's
I
a
don't know.
high school coach, executive coach for our high school,
Got it.
Yeah.
Like for the
Yeah.
students,
for the
for the teachers?
for the administration and
Got it.
students,
Okay.
but mostly administration.
Dr. Maystein is former principal at Colfax and assistant superintendent at Pittsburgh Public. So, has a lot of experience.
Got it.
Is this
I
a
just didn't know what
one-time
kind of coach it
expense?
was. I was like, coach.
is it a one-time expense or,
It's 25,000 for the rest of through June.
okay,
Gotcha. One time expense.
Why is David Maystein's name here? What's that for?
So it's a high school executive coach for our administrators and also additional support for students.
Michelle, can you remind me what Rennick Brothers is, this three-year contract?
Yes, that's a 3-year annual preventive maintenance contract for our middle school.
Yeah, so they manage the HVAC system there, and then the expense for this year would just be the $24,980, but each year, for their maintenance, for the preventative maintenance is what it would cost.
Okay. Anything else from anyone on the consent agenda?
I'm just gonna recommend maybe speak up,
Oh,
because
okay.
the camera's not picking you up, so I'm guessing the audio isn't.
It's because I'm so far away.
Let's find your desk closer.
Oh, no, I don't want to do that. Okay, well, if nothing else on the consent agenda, then I'll read the resolution. Resolution 2022-04-2064, be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of the school, like the consent agenda for February, oh, I'm sorry, there's a typo in here, for April 2022, be approved. May I have a motion to approve? Second? All in favor? So moved. Okay. Looks like we are moving on to the high school construction update from the facilities committee.
What part do you want me to share?
Yeah, we can put it in the back if you want Dan.
Sure, yeah, Dan's on his way, yeah.
And what he can do is, we have the schematics upstairs.
Oh, great. Cool.
I can run upstairs and get those if that's a helpful backdrop.
Sure,
for you.
yeah, it wouldn't hurt to share and show. Yeah, we can wait.
Is that, if that's okay?
Perfect, yeah, that's fine. Then we'll skip that, we'll come back to it when Dan gets here. Then I think, James, we are moving to the strategic planning update.
Yep. So thank you, Ben, and thank you, Chris, for allowing me to give a brief update for our strategic planning process at ECS. So just as a reminder, we've been engaging our friends at the Bayer Center for Nonprofit Management around a process to really think deeply and hard about the future of ECS as it relates to our next 5 and even 10 years. So the strategic plan duration that we're thinking about is our next 5 years, but really thinking about this organization once we have a full K-12 system and as we continue to grow, what are those areas that we really need to be thinking about that will guide and inform our strategic direction. So as a reminder, in late 2021, the Bayer Center had conducted surveys that went out to all of our parents and other external stakeholders, and then also our faculty and staff. At the start of 2022, as part of the still data collection process from our really critical and important stakeholders, they also engaged in focus groups. So from February 1st to March 1st, 2022, there were 5 parent and community member focus groups that were held. A total of 71 attendees had participated in those 5 focus groups, and they were focused specifically on each one. So each week, every Tuesday from February to March, there was a different topic area, and these topic areas were derived from essentially what our parents and community members had identified as major priority areas that they wanted to provide some feedback and guidance around. So those priority areas were academic excellence, extra and co-curricular activities, student support services, ECS community culture, and holistic student support. So each session was oriented around one of those things. And then the themes that were identified following these sessions were as follows. So number 1, what is ECS's plan to continue to support families at times of school disruption? Number 2, how can ECS rebuild trust for each other across all stakeholder groups? And that includes us, that includes parents, that includes our faculty and staff, just everyone that's a part of this community. Number 3, how ECS will continue to racially and economically diversify community and build a culture of belonging for everyone involved. Number 4, how can ECS student out of school time activities be expanded and broadened? And then number 5, and lastly, how can ECS honor multiple stakeholder perspectives in ECS decision making? So those were the kind of summarized themes that came up across all of those different groups from our parents. So right before spring break, on April 8th, 2022, the Bayer Center also led 2 faculty and staff focus groups. So 2 sessions that were each 1 hour, and a total of 32 faculty and staff members participated. And they did represent a really, really good cross-section of roles, role groups, schools, and functions within ECS. And I have to give some major thanks to our friends at the ECS FT for really helping us to make sure that teachers and instructional staff across every building were represented in these sessions. They did a really, really good job of just ensuring that we did have that diverse representation there. So those sessions were held on the 8th. And I mentioned the 32 members did participate. We actually have a follow-up meeting next Monday with Peggy Uten, who's the executive director of the Bayer Center, at which point she'll have the summarized themes, just like we had for our parent focus group. Those will be presented to us on Monday. And then the next step as part of this holistic process is we're really thinking about and taking all of this feedback from the surveys that happened at the end of 2021, these focus groups. The next stage is kind of more of an external analysis of, as we look at the school environment around ECS in the Pittsburgh community, how do we fit in and what are the important kind of learnings and key things that are happening in the educational landscape around us. So there'll be some analysis of that. And then the tentative timeline for the full strategic plan development, where we'll have, like, we can all celebrate and say, yay, we're ready and we're ready for the next 5 years. That's tentatively scheduled for the start of the 2022-2023 school year. So more to come on that, but I just wanted to give a brief update around the process to date, and then happy to answer any questions if anyone has any. And then thank you for, I don't remember the board members, but I know a number of our board members did attend the sessions that happened between February 1st and March 1st. Dr. Spice, I think you attended it, Dr. Parker and Mr. Aronson, and missed anyone else, but thank you for your participation as well.
Will we be sharing out the themes and the things we learned with the greater community at some point?
We will, yeah. So once we, I've got envisioning, I mean, obviously it will be baked into the final plan, but I'm envisioning just a summary that we can push out to our community members as well. Once we get both the parent and the faculty and staff, we'll likely push a communication out to everyone, just summarizing these data.
And what's the overall time frame for the final plan?
The start of the 2022-2023 school year, so by the August.
So pretty soon. Okay.
Yeah.
James, can you repeat the 5 themes? I missed a couple of them.
Oh, sure. So this was from the February 1st to March 1st parent and community feedback session. So the first was academic excellence. The second was extra and co-curricular activities. The third was student support services. The fourth was ECS community culture. And then the fifth was holistic student support.
Okay.
Do you think they were well received? Did you get any feedback?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So what we appreciate and what even the Bayer Center had shared in terms of feedback about just really appreciating the process is that there was very good, there were nothing was held back in terms of here's what I think and here's what I believe. And that really was a good way to approach it, in that folks just felt very comfortable with being able to share specific feedback. And what was really helpful that the Bayer Center was able to kind of summarize that for us is that the themes that we kind of identified, the summary themes, at least from the parent and family community member focus groups, these were things that came up in multiple places and multiple times. So it was something that was kind of more generalized across that big group. But I think it was very, certainly was helpful in the end of us to see that. And I did hear that a lot of the members did really appreciate it.
Will we see Peggy again, like when we do a retreat? I was just curious because I know we saw her last year.
I think we should.
Yeah.
She's tremendous.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd like to hear her
We should hang on to
take on everything.
the the sad thing is that Peggy is coming to the end of her career, I think, with Army, so, we may get her for another year. I think. After that, I think she's
Try to book her now.
looking
Yeah.
Some of the
Through this
feedback,
process, though.
something to, Leslie and I attended two of them, and one of them, there were some parents that were at first frustrated that the administration were not on these calls. And Peggy did a really good job saying, and apologize if it wasn't clear, but they're really for gathering information. It wasn't to answer questions, but to Dr. Doyle's point, everything, share what's on your mind, and we'll take it back. And there were some parents, I guess, were not comfortable sharing in the setting, and some were not, and Peggy seemed to offer, reach out to her directly. But the idea was not to have administration on to, here's a concern or compliment or complaint and automatically get a response. But let's gather it all, aggregate it, sort through it, and try to be open-minded with it. So I think moving forward with instructions to the community, make it very clear that the intent, which Peggy clarified as well, just so there's not an expectation coming to one of these hoping to get questions answered, but more of this is your opportunity to vent, to complement, to be strategic in thinking.
And another thing that was important, thank you, Michael, for that. Another thing that was important as a part of the process is that all of the feedback that we got back from the Bayer Center was completely anonymous. And that was something that Peggy and team felt was really important.
Yeah.
And that the feedback, this information doesn't have to be flavored by anything that any of us know or around anyone in our community. And that goes for both our parents and community members, but then also our faculty. So we can participate in the faculty and staff focus groups too, so that it's an open space for, whatever comes up, and then those summarized themes are all we get that are completely anonymous.
And yeah, if there's a way to have a mechanism in place if someone wants to share something that fearing in the community, they say something that's not in good spirit or on the same line of other parents, that they're not going to get backlash, setting up an environment that they can share it anonymously or something to that degree. That came up on the call as well.
Did Peggy give any indication that there were a lot of parents that thought that this was like, use your word, a venting session more than focus groups of what they were? I mean, was that kind of an outlier, or was that?
I think so. With the two we attended, that only came up by one parent.
Okay.
But I think Peggy had, when the second one we attended, I think was towards the end, Peggy had said, glad to see so many familiar faces. So I think there were a lot of people that are willing to devote their time to give feedback.
Yeah, because one piece of feedback that Peggy gave me was that she was pleasantly surprised how many people signed up to participate in this, and that's why this project has taken longer than we had initially anticipated. Was the focus groups had to be broken out even more so than she had initially anticipated, just with how many folks were interested in being a part of the conversation. So I just want to make sure that the conversations were aimed in the right way.
I think they were. I think like myself, when the email came in, I signed up for them all to put them in my calendar, thinking that that'll be great. And as we got closer to the day of, had something else going on, and then reached out to Peggy to say couldn't make it. I'm guessing others did the same, which why there was such high sign-up rate and lower. Just because no one really knew what these are going to be like in the midst of everything coming out of the meeting.
Okay.
Sounds like it's been productive.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Very good.
Any other questions? Thank you. Thanks, man.
No problem. Thank you. I think we're moving on to the Accelerated Learning Plan and PPS Annual Audit.
Thanks. So I have the privilege of talking about both the Accelerated Learning Planning and our PPS audit. So one is like looking to the future and the other is looking at the past. So I'll start with the future planning, which is really great. And so accelerated learning is really what the state and the IU have put forth as a system for response to the gaps that have come out of the pandemic. And so it is a way to systematically look at all the different areas of your school and plan really thoughtfully and intentionally for the move forward. It's a lot of work that we're already doing, but over the summer, we'll be working on the actual format that we have to submit for the state, for the plans. And they're really in the areas that we already value as a school, which is really great. So there are 4 areas that we have to plan for, are a focus on high quality academics, which we already have, fostering a supportive learning environment, and that's working on equitable, trauma-informed, safe and inclusive spaces, establishing a healthy system, the conditions for a healthy system. So that's looking at scheduling, sustainability, technology, things that we've already kind of started to dig at a little bit. And then designing a system of scaffolded supports, and those are our behavioral, social, and emotional supports. And so I think it's, for the first time, it's really recognizing as PDE that all 4 of those buckets are really important. And the interconnectedness of all 4 of those, which is really exciting to see. And that hopefully we'll be able to work with the IU and other schools during the summer planning process and kind of share what we've learned and learn a little bit from them as we really think about how we can move forward next school year with data, with our MTSS structures. What can we also bolster for social and emotional support for students so that we can continue that forward momentum, which is we're starting to see, which is really great. Is there any questions about accelerated learning before I move to PBS?
So this is like a state mandated thing that we have to participate in?
Yep. It's a plan for ways to respond to the data.
Was there anything in the plan that surprised you? What are the other results?
We actually have to go through the
Oh,
plan
going
first.
through it, okay,
Yeah.
I got you.
It's not, what actually is not surprising is that we need to hit all 4 areas in order to really think about our students in a thoughtful way. And it's no longer just a PSSA score or, you know, the building and the facility, but how can all 4 of those things really work together to support students? And that idea of accelerating learning, right? So we have gaps in learning, and so we need to accelerate in order to get our students back to where they should be and move forward.
Do you have any concerns that you don't have resources to meet all those areas?
Yes and no, right? So I think what we're finding is that as we're scratching at the needs for social and emotional support, we have a ton of resources. We have a wonderful department. The individuals who work there are working hard, but I'm not sure if we're going to need even more in the years to come as more and more of the kind of after effects of coming back from a pandemic are highlighted.
Are you gonna have a lot of extra teacher staff development so these areas are integrated seamlessly throughout?
Yeah, and one of the things with our school calendar is we actually put in an additional August professional development day for staff at the beginning of the year, knowing that we would have a lot more that we needed to cover. And then if you notice, like some of the half days are now actually listed as professional development days, so that staff know ahead of time that that's time that we're going to be working together on some of these big tasks.
So I don't know if this fits in this section of the agenda or not, but there has been, we received an email today about like ongoing behavioral bullying issues in the 5th grade, and I attended a meeting with both of you, with 5th grade parents about that. And maybe that's another broader topic for discussion here, but does that category of problem fall into this accelerated learning plan? And is that something you have a handle on, like that piece of how you're addressing?
Yeah, I think that's all in both of that kind of trauma-informed care, our behavioral supports that we're giving for students. And that's that idea of what we're starting to uncover. Do we have enough of our student services team available? Do we need to go to an outside partnership? What does that look like? And that's what we're going to be planning this summer, really thinking about what we need. And we need to do that in conjunction with our student services team.
So do you have a sense now of what, like just preliminary sense of
I do not.
where we stand on that?
I think that we're doing as best as we can in a situation that's really hard, and schools across the nation are feeling the same thing. Every time we go to a conference and we hear from other administrators or other teachers, this is a harder year than anyone could have ever imagined. And we're losing teachers, we're losing administrators, not we, but like the global we of school. And so it's how can we ensure that we're taking care of everyone, and that's hard. And so we need to figure out a little bit more and plan a little bit more for next school year. And look at the data too, right? So we have educators handbook that will look at all of the different disciplinary infractions that have happened throughout the school year. We can find out exactly what's been happening where and how we can then use our PBIS structures and all of the things that we know really impact children rather than just punishment and kind of exclusionary practices, so that we are accepting and moving forward with students.
So as part of that, can we include a communication plan to the parents about specific issues or how you're addressing them and what the gaps are, that kind of thing? Is that part of the plan?
I think that's a great idea. Communication is always part of when we do things like this, like you saw with all of our health and safety plans and things like that. So most likely at the end of the summer, this will come back up at a board meeting and then be shared out with families.
Maddie, we'll look at the cohort, right?
Yes.
Alongside some other schools.
Yep.
That's why PDE and the state and the IUs have recognized this issue as really broad, and they pulled us all to the table and building this cohort. So we're part of a group that will go to the IU and sit and work around these frameworks. So we'll be able to answer more of those questions about what's available out there and what sort of systems are being built in other school systems and what the state is seeing.
What's working and what's not working for other schools too.
Yeah.
I think that's really important for us all to learn together. I think we found that a little bit through the pandemic, that the ability to kind of open the walls up of other schools was really important. And so if we can keep doing that, I think it'll be great.
I think it's a far richer experience the other side of that. I think that'll be telling.
Yeah.
So the end product of all of this will be a plan,
Yes.
right? That addresses those four.
I think it's far better supported than the health and safety plan, for instance, which was pushed out and said, okay, all schools go ahead and develop a health and safety plan. And these are the basic frameworks and fill it in and, connect with experts on your board and your community to ensure that that's a robust plan. This one, they're pulling us to the table and providing cohorts and taking time during the summer. So we look forward to it.
Is that like from the Department of Education or?
Are you hoping to have this, you said, if there's any training that's needed or anything like that, will that be identified or additional resources so that at the start of the school year
Yeah.
can hit the ground running versus rolling out the plan and then adding additional resources or training in the fall?
Absolutely. I think that it has to go that way. I think what we're finding now is that there is this bit of like, we're finding out what we need and then we're doing training while the year is going on. And that's really challenging for staff that are already feeling the struggle and the strain of coming back after the pandemic. So add on top of that, the additional PD that's needed to kind of lessen that strain, right? So it's like a continued cycle. So if we do it in the summer, it'll be a lot stronger.
So I have two questions. One, just to be clear, so you are going to look at trends and look at data unique to ECS to inform this plan and not kind of just generalizations, right?
Correct.
And then will there be any sort of assessment for kids around the emotional well-being? I mean, I think we've talked about, we know that, we're seeing fights and we're seeing all these other behavioral issues. So we have a sense of what's going on, but are there any assessments that we could do with kiddos to kind of assess even like depression and anxiety or any of those other concerns?
They do that. Our student services team does that. They collect data with the SRSS, which I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact initials for in the HOPE survey. And so they are able to figure out, there's indicators through lots of different indicators in that survey, and anxiety and depression are one of them. Connectedness to school, connectedness to peers, all of that stuff is embedded within that, and they get kind of usable data that can then be kind of disaggregated and used for this.
And do all kiddos receive that assessment or just the ones that walk through the front door of the counseling?
Oh, everyone.
Okay.
It's part of our assessment yearly plan. Yeah.
is there any communication that's gonna go out soon around this plan of what you're doing and kind of a timeline? You know, everyone likes timelines, but
Yeah.
the lack of communication gives the perception of lack of transparency or everyone's ignoring it. So something will go out with, we're collecting, we're identifying, and here's our proposed action.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We also have to develop teams, and so I think once we have those teams in place, we'll be able to send out a communication that's really clear and has all the parts to it, so that people can feel that we're being transparent.
And that you're doing it methodically rather than just, I know some things need to be done reactively, but also proactively.
Correct, that's good.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, it sounds like most of the potential resources that we would need to add down the road are in the way of staff and teacher training, as well as additional student support. Is there anything else that you can think through, like whether it's training or technology related or anything like that you feel would be helpful?
I'm not sure technology wise. I think that we have a ton of the infrastructure that we need there and the software. It's more in line of training, right? But then also looking at our curricular resources too and digging in and making sure that they're still in line with what we believe is our mission, and then also what's supporting kids. So that's time, right? So the resources would be time, people, and then also some student services or outside partnerships, or whether it's people like in capital.
And do you think that, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Do you think that the plan, when it's completed, will get down to the finite level of a specific budget of what resources you would need?
It would inform my budget. So yes, whether it's in the plan baked into it itself or not, it will, because it will be something that I need to act for.
Does this extend to, the teachers and staff? I just think about their emotional well-being as well, and, you know, you need to fund their kind of masks so that they can help the kids. So does that get included in the planning as well?
Yeah, and that's essentially one of the fostering supportive learning environments too. It's not just about the students, but it's also about the educator showing up in that space too. We just had 2 days for high school staff that were strategic planning days. And so those 2 days felt very good for the staff. They came back and said, thank you. We feel appreciated. We feel a little bit more relieved about planning. So any planning that we can do in this way really does alleviate some anxiety from a staff member. So that's one part. And then the other part is really thinking about the emotional health of our educators and what training can we provide them in order for them to show up and be their best selves every day. It has been a hard year.
I think my question also, so I understand the training piece, but I'm thinking about like the support.
Oh, yes.
As well.
Yeah. And so we're thinking about just different ways that we can support the whole person. So whether that would be, I want to share that. Thinking about. Thinking about whether or not we can help with even, think about gym memberships for staff, or are there ways that we can then support their well-being? EAP, making sure they're aware of all of the resources that they have. It's not just training, it is about them as people.
There was that place, the chill room, that
Yeah.
had come up, and I don't know if that's I think we're gonna look into it again. There's like the Allegheny Health Network has this chill room option that some schools in the area have taken on, where I think there's somebody that's provides counseling. It's like in addition to our support staff. And then I think there's also a place where kids can go if they're having a hard time. But I think we need space and money to partner with them about it. But I think we're gonna look into it again and see if that's
Yeah, and
an
that's
option.
where,
I know the Penguins have like done a partnership with some of the other schools.
Yeah.
Like a real chill room.
yeah, and that's where it's one of those things, is it partnership or is it our own employees? And so I think that's where we'll have to use the expertise of Marissa McGuire, Director of Psychological and Student Services, and Dwight Hoffman, and really think about their team and what is best for them, and how they can then support kids and staff.
I shared this in another meeting, but it's always worth plugging again. If your employees have UPMC health plan, they have a wellness tool, which is very similar to Calm and Headspace that they can use for free. So that's another option for them. It's called RxWell.
Frida also pushed out some information too. So our Frida Kinney pushed out some information about very low cost services for wellness too, not mental wellness, but more physical wellness too. So we're trying as much as we can to just kind of bolster supports.
It's some of those trainings that we need to have, because, you know, when we look at the youth, the take up on some of these programs to support adults in the system, it's pretty low. You know, you often need to meet crisis point before you get there, and trying to help folks understand what it looks like when you're not doing so well. You know, get to them, get them connected a bit quicker.
Do we do a survey of all of our faculty to see what their needs are? Like kind of, how you were saying we do that whole survey for the grade, can we do something like that
We have, and right now we're doing one. I don't know if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, so we actually just sent out a survey that's being kind of led by an external partner. For anyone that's familiar, it ties into the best workplaces kind of process within Allegheny County. But as part of that process, they survey all of your employees, and it does get into engagement, wellness, happiness, and all of these things. And those data will be available to us.
You go back to the plan provides this framework to do all of this work, because this year has felt that we need this, we pull down this, and we think about that, and it feels really messy. And this is a really nice framework for us to do this work in a more holistic and full intentional way in all of those areas that maybe just discussed. But it's not going to come without a pricing team, so maybe a budget in all of those areas. So I think the board here is going to have to, we're going to have some tough discussions about what gives a little bit in order to provide those resources, because under academics too, we're going to be pushing those as part of this plan too. So what do we do in those spaces? That additional human capital, is it additional tutoring, all of those are large expenses. And so again, the plan provides a framework to look at that, so we can get in front of this board and request those resources. Or actually talk to you, Michelle. Before we get
It feels so supportive to you to be working in a group outside of here, even, just to understand what's going on in the outside world.
Do we know our cohort yet?
Dwight, I believe Dwight does.
Oh, okay.
Do you know, how do they put the cohorts together? Is it based on, you know, like a city school versus rural schools? Is it student body population size? Is it, I mean, what?
That's a really good question that I don't know. Dwight is not here this evening, but he would know.
So Dwight being our compliance officer, right, recently, was it a month ago, spent some time with the Title I cohort up at Seven Springs. It's a yearly Title I conference, came back from that conference and said, okay, look, schools are gathering around this framework, and we absolutely need to do the same. So we're a month into this.
Yeah.
So early days.
Okay, shall I move on to PPS or is there?
Ray didn't expect that update.
So I think that the first thing that I want to say is for our PPS annual audit is a huge thank you. We had a team of over 20 people working on gathering all the documents for our annual review. And it's actually spanned both the way that our review works is not this school year, it is the year prior. And so the years that it was spanning was last year and then the year prior to that. And so we had to pull all the documentation together for them. We had actually used our space at Kingsley for the first time as closed campuses. We were still able to bring them in. It was really kind of a nice organized way where we didn't print out tons of things. We were very much on mission. We used our technology. They were able to go through all of our documents in a really efficient way. And we thank all of the folks who came in and were able to look and spend time with all of our stuff and provide us feedback that will hopefully move us forward. We don't have that feedback just yet, but I did want to let you know that that did happen. And there was only just a few things that they needed after that meeting that we were able to pull all that stuff together pretty efficiently. And so I really have a huge thank you to everyone who worked on it. It was really.
Yeah, thank you to PPS. If PPS is watching this evening, I appreciate all of their administrators that show up and take time to, out of their normal jobs, to come and help us in our work. So thanks to PPS.
Any questions about that? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Just waiting on Dan, do we want to, are we comfortable
Yeah,
going
we should
through?
do it.
Want to go through? Okay.
Yeah, do it.
No.
So is it-
I mean, I think the biggest update is that we're going through a process of trying to hire like a construction manager, right? Is what probably the appropriate term, to kind of act as boots on the ground, face like an owner's rep type of position, to be working with the architect, working with ROS, working with the contractors, just to make sure that someone has our best interest in the midst, of progress, making sure that everything's on schedule, making sure that if something goes awry, that message gets back to the right people. We've met and interviewed, I guess it's a company, right? It's a gentleman who has a company. You guys have interviewed him. I've participated in one. He has really great experience, comes highly recommended experience around exactly what we want and hope to do. And that's probably the biggest update at the moment, right?
Certainly is. The schedule's a big
Yeah,
one, so
yeah.
everyone knows, and we can certainly show off some of these
Sure.
schematics. So the team, Oros, team Rick Avon Design, and a number of engineering companies that support the project itself are all, shoulders to the grindstone here and going for it. So where are we? We're about to submit a transportation plan. So this building, of course, is going on Hamilton. We're sitting at the Kingsley Association right on Frankstown here, and we're not far from here, right? So the part of this plan is to put together a transportation plan. So we have consultants just finished that. Those are submitted through to DOMI. This is the Department of Mobility and
Something along those
Infrastructure
lines,
and
yeah.
things like that. Ultimately, that gets submitted, and that's anytime now. There's some intricacies around the number of bike racks that we need currently as part of the design. That goes into DOMI. DOMI asks a couple of questions, essentially okays the transportation plan. From there, in parallel, we'll be submitting through to zoning the whole thing. So all of the designs and all the schematics, and this is into your area,
Yeah.
right? All get submitted. Our goal is to have that in for, get in front of zoning in July. They're closed in August, right? So we feel at this junction, you sit on this committee as well, that we should be in that space. So we're going to push it forward for July. If we get a thumbs up, which I'm sure we will because it's a brilliantly designed high school, ultimately then we're waiting for
Just approval.
Yeah, approval, and you get all your what do you call it when you can swing a hammer? Permits, that's right. All the permits for swinging a hammer, and that's, at that point, we get into demolition, and that's the point where these fine folks manage that journey for us. And so our design is almost complete, and when I say almost complete, I mean, you can look at the design now. We are designing the infrastructure behind the theater right now. We're designing, these are small moves, and so a long discussion today around the exhaust hoods for the chemistry lab, right? So we had consultants come in that know how to design a chemistry lab. So there's a chemistry lab and a biology lab and sinks and acids and all kinds of nasty things and neutralization tanks underneath each sink, and all of these have to be designed as part of the functioning of this passive house building. So we're down to relatively small moves. It turned out that I tripped over the theater because I didn't realize how complicated the theater was in terms of lighting and infrastructure and where all these things are. So we're running around trying to get some of that work. That all gets integrated into the design, and ultimately, off to zoning. So that is the journey. With that comes construction in the fall, and we get to watch this building rise. Yesterday, as part of our training with high school for 2 days, we took the high school team down there and we roamed around the empty building, which was a lot of fun. You didn't realize that we had so many hoarders in the high school faculty, but
Because they wanted to keep a bunch of stuff that they saw in there.
Well, it's, teachers take, I mean,
Yeah.
you can use anything in your
Right.
classroom, and so John said you can take anything if it's not bolted down to a
right?
group of teachers, they took things.
So the board's welcome too, right? At one point we'll get as a board, I really hope to take you through that space. I mean, it's a fabulous spot. We shared with that faculty how rich the assets were.
Yeah.
We discussed with that faculty, how rich the assets are associated with our other schools. That one of our schools sits on a 500-acre park. The other one has access through Kensington to that same 500-acre park. And our middle school connects to an urban farm and beyond. And here's high school, and what does that connect to? And so Hamilton is rich with robotics companies, tech companies, a theater at one end. It's got East End Brewery, so don't know that chemistry might go down that road, but it's more likely to be a faculty, end of a Friday faculty meeting potentially.
Yes.
But ultimately treat Pittsburgh and beyond. And so it provides such a rich space for high school kids to work, to intern. They can move across and into Bakley Square to get jobs. And then from a communication standpoint, it's excellent. A number of bus routes, terminate there. We're close to, walking in every which direction. So as an urban campus, we're really, really excited to be there. So again, I'm going to say thanks to the brilliant people that sit on our board, including the man that just came in.
Sorry I'm late, everybody.
That's
My
all right.
apologies.
For supporting this complicated, elongated project to get this high school built. But we're excited to go down that road. So we have some great schematics behind us. So we'll leave those there. And if the board wants to take a look at the end, we're proud to show off.
Can you help me understand the responsibility of Oros and then this project manager that we would hire? Where does Oros' responsibility end
It's a
and
little
where
bit
does the project manager begin?
wanna
It's
go
kind
first?
of, well, it's kind of a hard question to answer, because I kind of asked that similar question when we interviewed the CM. I mean, Oros,
I can answer.
interrupt me if I'm wrong.
I can answer.
Go ahead.
So Oros is mainly
Real
concerned with.
Good time.
Ours is mainly concerned with all of the certifications that we're going after. They are helping in the pre-construction of the design phase of getting that stuff into the drawings, those specifications and those ideas into the drawings, as well as estimating schedules. And I'm going to give them our non-technical specifications for how to run the job.
Okay.
Like we have a specification for a doorknob, but then there's specifications on no smoking, no music, hours of operation are here and there, all that kind of stuff. Once we get bids in hand and we have contractors placing work, the project manager is going to be all about schedule, quality, making all the primes play good and nice in the sandbox together. All of the normal construction things, and then ours will then solely be focused on making sure that we get the certifications that we have set up for them.
Okay.
So right now, their role is kind of to make sure that the design and budget, that budget stays aligned with where we want to be, but that it also meets this design criteria that we hope to have these certifications. And then once construction starts, they kind of fall to the backside of things, and that construction manager takes more of a forefront.
So that's helpful for me to understand. So when construction actually begins, Oros.
They'll still be involved,
Okay.
but just to make sure that we being the contractors, are doing the things, buying the right materials, submitting the right paperwork, doing all the things to meet the certifications that are incorporated in the design.
Okay. They also ensure that all of the players at the table and the engineering companies at this juncture all play nicely in the same sandbox
Great.
and are aligned.
Yes.
And also work to manage that work on a day-to-day basis and ensure that on our weekly meeting, everything's aligned and moving forward. And if I drop a piece, they pick it up pretty quickly.
And so I'll just ask you the follow-up question. Oros doesn't have the capabilities to be a project manager?
No.
No, okay.
And I don't know if we want them to be either. It's kind of the fox watching the hen house a bit.
Okay.
So,
And the balance, the important balance for the board is to have two experts on the board that look after our interests from the board standpoint, because the players at the table, I mean, not that this is an issue, but they'd be paid whether the building was built anyway, right? Architects and engineers will get that paycheck whether we build the building or not. But our experts on the board ensure that we're moving in a direction that actually we're gonna get it built.
they have a financial vested interest in the success of the building. So we want an independent person making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. It's like the old fallacy of architecture firms used to be both the architect and the construction manager. So if there was a change order because the architect's drawings were wrong, that construction manager could look the other way. If Oros was also managing the worst work and getting their certificates, they had a foot in each camp.
Okay.
And when's the estimated date of completion that we're shooting for?
Well,
Yes,
we're sticking to our existing one, which is the
School,
end of
start school.
you know, year after we start construction.
Oh.
Right? So throughout next school year,
Next
right? Now, of course, there's all kinds of risk in the middle of that, we usually deal with that and get more information on that. That is, there are absolute, you know, we refuse to take off, foot off that accelerator.
So high school is currently based this upcoming school year.
So this upcoming school, this next school year, we're remain where we are for the
Right.
following school
Yeah.
year. That is our goal.
Yeah.
I think at the last board meeting, you had mentioned how, like, supply chain and prices and all that stuff seemed like it was gonna be a really,
it's still really bad.
okay, I was just curious.
We just had a client in Trinity Area School District bid a 40 by 40 garage, concrete floor, block walls, brick on the outside, residential truss roof. It had a Promethean board in the corner because it's a teaching station for their auto body class. And the low bid was $750,000.
What would it ordinarily go for?
200.
Got it.
I mean, it's 40, but it was $748 a square foot, which is, hospital class is usually like 600. You go in like a labor and delivery suite. So I have two projects actually are out bid right now, and one of them is a $25 million project in Attenworth. We'll have the bid results before next board meeting, and I think that will be a very telling measuring stick of where we are.
One of my projects that is in the midst of starting construction, we're carrying like 7% just for unforeseen price increases, whatever, material cost escalation, labor escalate, whatever it may be. And that's probably on the low side.
Yeah, I've been doing this since '94, and I've never gone into a bid with contingency. It's always reduced to 1%, and we're not carrying 10 to 15%. It's just a slush fund on the bottom.
Oh, well, that 7%, yeah, and that 7% is on top of the 10% contingency.
So
So are we prepared for that?
I mean, I think
Oh,
so.
okay.
I think so. I haven't looked at the estimate in a while, but I know we're carrying contingencies.
Yeah, we're looking at, that's the beauty of this team. It's not walked away from that at all. We're constantly looking at it. And as you can tell from Dan at the end there, he's very, he's very connected, and we meet with the bank monthly. And they're also supporting construction projects along the way, so that they know exactly what pressure we're under. We actually met with them last week. So we pay close attention to any fluctuation.
we would really like to build some alternates into the project. Like the base bid is like the bare bones of what we want, what we need. And then if we have a decent bid day, you can say, well, as an add alternate, we can pick up whatever. And then you can add that in on bid day. You can do the reverse as well. You can have a deduct change order. Don't do the gym and save $200,000. We can manipulate that to try to enhance our opportunity to have a successful bid day. But if we're 25% over budget, there's no amount of all, and you'd be like, eliminate the fourth floor, kind of thing. It's just, earth shattering kind of maneuvers, so. Sorry to be the bearer of bad, since I arrived late.
Well, these are interesting times without a doubt, right?
It's been really hard, actually. I've been in front of 4 school boards in the last month giving bad news about supply chain, material increases, whatever. I mean, we're now doing things. Macero's doing a hospital in Johnstown, and the roofing contractor walked away from his contract, even at the risk of losing hundreds of thousands of dollars in bond money, because it would have been more expensive for him to absorb the price increase for the insulation that's under the roof. So even though we're only in foundations in the building structure, the building process, we're storing like 70,000 square feet of building insulation in various storage sheds around Johnstown, because we had to take the material now as opposed to in a year and a half from now, and still absorb a 550 something upcharge.
So with these 4 school boards you talked to that are disappointed, are they just absorbing the expense? Are they?
Beaver Area School District absorbed the expense. They were over budget by $734,000 on about a $6 million job. And the day of the bid, the superintendent looked at me and said, well, it looks like we're not doing the soccer field. So they were able to just say, we're gonna take the $800,000 from the soccer field and reallocate it to this. Central Green that we bid came in over budget. We redesigned the project, eliminated a big portion of it, and it's went back out on the street today. Trinity Area School District, like Avonworth, we peeled a bunch of project parts and pieces of the project out of the project around Christmas time and lowered the cost of the job about $10 million, and now the price is back to where it was originally. So we took that much money out, but now it's back to the same price.
So are we prepared with this construction, as you were saying, to remove X, Y, and Z for now? And
We'll
then,
do that in the final stages. We'll have to figure out what those are.
so that's kind of in your contingency planning, like.
We'll have to do something. We'll have to have, the problem is you gotta find that, you don't wanna strip the building down.
Right.
So they have to be well thought out, they have to be well conceived, and definitely the administration and the staff will have to participate in that. Because it's easy for me to say, wipe out the 4th floor, but that doesn't fit into everybody else's.
So how does a contract typically look when you exceed that contingency that's already built into it? It all falls on
The owner.
the owner at the end of the day anyway. So the bid is just what you hope to reach, but there's really there's no protection to the owner at any point.
The only protection that you have is that, the estimating that Macero does and that I do is to tell the board what we think fair market value is of the cost. The truth of the matter is that the cost of the building is the cost of that day, at that time, at that moment in time. And if it comes in over budget, it comes in over budget. However, if we have 4 primes and we have a low electrical bid, even if it's over budget, we have a low electrical bid, and it's say $1 million, and the next bid is $1.2 million. If that bidder chooses to withdraw because they found a mistake or whatever, we would get 10% of their bid from their bid bond. Their bidding bonding agency would hand us $100,000 to help make up that delta to bridge the gap between the guy that was at $1 million and the guy that was at $1.2 million.
Gotcha.
But that only
kicks in if
there's a mistake.
Yeah, well,
Or if someone pulls out, is that what you're saying?
if they pull out, they have to prove that they made a mistake, which they can write a certified letter and say, we transposed the number. I mean, it's hard to prove that they didn't.
Thank you.
Oh, no worries.
It's not always horrible.
Just in the last 6
It's just the
months.
world we're living in right now.
So there's not a lot you can do about the dollar part, but there is a lot that you can do about, like, we'll have a lot of opportunity to make sure everything is here when it's supposed to be. But we have a lot of hurdles to get, right, like, to get across to get to that point. Because of the length of our construction, we can order things way ahead of time, to plan for the fact that things are taking 10 months instead of 4 months. But yeah, the dollar stuff, we just have to wait. Do everything we can and then wait and see.
The problem that 90% of the people, or maybe even higher, is that their work isn't gonna be placed for another year. So I'm bidding, I'm a drywall contractor, and I'm submitting a bid to ECS in January. My work won't even be ready to be placed until September. So what's that price of metal studs and insulation and drywall gonna be in September when I need it? And I doubt anybody any even huge drywall company in the city of Pittsburgh has the ability to buy that volume of material and store it. In 2013, a lot of when we saw the recession hit, a lot of companies said, I don't know, I'm gonna buy a spool of wire from you today. I'm Wellington Power, and I'm gonna buy a spool of wire from you today. But when I need it in July, ship it to me, and I'm not gonna pay the July price, I'm paying the April price. And now they're all saying, if you buy the wire, come get it. Or we'll resell it and make 10% more. So other than that, this is like, I would like to show.
Make sure.
The one thing that is really nice, and this is what I was able to tell Avonworth and Trinity, is that these aren't $4 million, 3-month summer, quick hitters. This is a 2-year project. It's gonna be very important and very attractive to a lot of these companies to have that backlog and know that they have their forces covered for that amount of time. And since it is that amount of time, whether the doors are on a 8-week lead time or a 20-week lead time, we have 36 months to do it, or 24 months to do it. So, we have the wiggle and waggle in there.
Are there contingencies in place when we say we're hoping construction will be 1 year from start? But if there are major supply chain issues that are unforeseen, it is what it is. There's nothing you can do. You just delay an opening and completion. And
Well, I mean, the unfortunate thing about schools is you can only move in September and January. A move-in date of October 15th is meaningless too. I mean, unless you want to talk to the union and have them move an entire school over the weekend.
But I'm saying there's no financial, there's nothing one of the contractors is held liable for if they can't get material out of their control.
Right now, we're writing into the specifications that after they get the notice to proceed, after the school board votes to enter into contracts with low bidders, they are required to submit to the construction manager and the owner a list of any long lead items that might adversely affect the delivery date of the project. We need to know that before they even have their dumpster on the site, so that we can have the time to deal with it.
But I'm saying there's no recourse if we miss it.
No.
No one's really held accountable except you miss it, and then we have to lease more space in temporarily.
Yeah, we can't hold, a drywall contractor responsible for delaying the
Yeah.
job.
Okay.
Now, we can assess them liquidated damages, which is not a punitive thing. If the job's gonna be late because Michael Aronson was late, we can charge you liquidated damages, but it has to be a value that we can prove that we would lose money, which we could if we were carrying classroom trailers for another 6 months or whatever. But a lot of the times the bidders look at it and they say, I don't believe this schedule anyway. I think it's gonna be a month late, so 20 days times X number of dollars a day of liquidated damages, and then they put that number right in their bid.
So how much contingency do we have in our current plan from a timing perspective, not dollars?
I don't think we have any.
Not-
Yeah.
I think we're our backs against the wall. We can't stay at same rates for that much longer.
And the likelihood of getting everything approved in July,
I think it's absolutely reasonable.
Not that we can do anything about it anyway at this point, that's the shortest timeline to get something in front of them.
I mean, shooting for having it in front of them before they recess for 4 weeks is a great goal. But we can't control how long they sit there approving it. It may be 4 weeks, it could be 6 weeks.
That's right, there's always that moment, but, we can do some things in parallel, the don't zoning moment, right? We don't need to wait for them to come back and say, yeah, we approve it completely. We can get ourselves on the schedule for July. But there's risk everywhere, right? And the minute you start building everything, Angela, absolutely. You know it.
We can still go out to bid, we just can't award contracts until we have a permit in hand. So if we have to extend the bid day, 2 weeks or whatever, it's really no big deal.
Needs uplifting music.
Dun, dun, dun.
Any other questions from anyone on the high school construction project? Positive notes?
Play those lottery cards.
The drawings look nice. There you go.
Much more of a glass half person.
That's really, yeah. It's with balances.
I don't know, I've made it this far, but.
All right, well, that'll move us into committee reports. For the executive committee, a lot of what we discussed in the executive committee is actually, we've either talked about or will talk about in governance, education, finance, and facilities, so I don't need to double down. Maybe I'll give it to Michael and Seth now for governance.
Governance committee, we have our slate finalized pretty much for the executive team for the board for next school year. We also had some members express interest and gone through the whole process. Remember, we started advertising in January internally. We got some parent interest, and some have moved forward with the whole process of attending the meetings and meeting with the administration, and then following up from there. So between some of the junior board members, the expressed interested candidates in the executive team, we will bring the slate to vote for next month for the next school year, and also work on the onboarding and all that process. We did have a late candidate who expressed some interest in the board, and we'll work with them to see where's a fit in the future with the organization. That's all.
That's it.
I think it's all I have. Yep.
My understanding is we'll have a full slate of parent board members. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
And you were gonna go back to Dan and Pornella to see if they.
Yeah, so Pornella is doing a short-term
Hiatus.
Leave of absence.
leave of absence, so we're gonna hold her to her spot, she'll come back.
Okay.
Dan Foreman I spoke to, he wants to get very involved. He can't serve on the board role, but he can help in any capacity just from his time commitment. So I'm gonna connect him back with you or whoever in the education committee. He's been, learned a lot, and he thinks he can continue to work closely with the board with things he's working on as well. So I told him I would welcome that. We just spoke about 2 weeks ago. And if that transforms into a non-parent role as well, we'll see where that goes, but he definitely is eager and excited to get back. He's been able to breathe. His company has gotten multi-million dollars of federal grants, all in the education space. There are continuing to hire, so he thinks some of the things that he's doing might be very beneficial to the school, especially since we're going to the high school. So
That's wonderful.
I will make that connection.
Very good. Yep. Anything else from governance?
I don't think so.
Merrill, education?
We ended up not meeting this month because we are down so many people. The education committee right now is me and Ashley, is she here, Claire?
She's not here today.
And Andres Samuels.
He's not able to make it, he just said.
And so what I decided to do at least for this month, is I segued onto the task force committee, because they were down now, what, 4 people?
The task force was down, 2 board members, yes.
All right, and so I spent some time with that for the fund that started out as a college and career fund, and I kind of renamed it the Envision Your Future Fund, because I wanted to expand it beyond paying for college applications and things like that. And so I did a document, just a draft document for everybody to just start thinking. I'm not gonna go through this whole thing. I just wanna read, and this is not approved by anybody. This was just a starting point. And so I wrote a goal of the fund. So I don't know if you've had a chance to look through the website that's still evolving for the high school. It's quite informative and impressive, and I guess as the high school grows, the website will grow. But the thing that impresses me so most are the 4 learning pathways that it gives students so much agency in designing their own curriculum. It's kind of like going to Brown University, and it's a wonderful thing, and wonderful electives to connect. So I took a quote out of this at the website. The ECHS will build in mechanisms, structures, and opportunities for students to discover their authentic selves, and then design conditions with students to build on their assets while understanding personal areas for growth. So that was a big kind of bellwether for me, this personal areas of growth. And I guess I started to believe that this fund needs to connect and augment the opportunities in these 4 learning pathways and the electives that are already available to students, so that everything is interconnected and there's always a chance for these students to grow and extend their learning. So then I just continued. High school's a time when students begin their journey into thinking about the real world of adulthood. They need varying degrees and kinds of support to begin the support and growth. ECHS's curriculum, partnerships, elective courses, and other learning opportunities begin to open the world to all students, who can then tailor these opportunities to meet their own specific wants and needs. The fund will help support their personal work and the work of their counselors to guide them to explore opportunities that expand and extend those offered by the school. With additional support tailored to specific students' needs, many more students will be able to come to know who they are and their potential, and who they want to become, the possibilities. So that's what this fund hopefully will be able to further support the work of the teachers, provide mentorship, a lot of mentorship for kids, and of the counselors. And I would guess eventually there will be a counseling team. So these kids have a tremendous amount of support to grow and figure out who they might want to become. So that's as far as we got so far.
I love the name of the.
Well, it grew from, college and career fund, because it's just, that's what kids, I think, need to grow. It's like I was saying in the last meeting, high school kids, it's like, it's all about me. I can't think beyond me, and I don't even know when I'm thinking about me. So hopefully this will grow them socially and emotionally, and you've got this good work going on, so hopefully something good will come out of this.
Like it.
Yeah, it's great.
Very good. Thank you. I know Katie Sakanik wasn't able to join tonight, so I don't know that we're going to have an ECS FT update. And Kevin Chung said that nobody from PCO was available to join this evening either, so we won't have a PCO update. That leaves us with finance and facilities. Sarah's not here. I know Dan and Angela, if you guys have a finance update.
I think the biggest thing we did was interview and hire.
I did talk about that before you came in, yeah.
Very good. Aside from the doom and gloom of the high school, anything else? Okay. Well, with that, we've gotten to the end of the agenda for, except for other business. Anyone have any other business to bring up?
I have a question.
Sure.
At the hospital, I am in the midst of relocating a ton of people, and I come across a ton of stuff that nobody wants.
High school faculty.
Like coffee makers, like tables, like chairs, like things that I don't want to throw in the garbage. And I have tried like multiple avenues in the hospital. Donating is really difficult, like with an actual like program. You know, we can scrap things. I don't want to throw it away. And I wanted to ask you all, like if I come across things, take pictures, send them to you.
Yes, please.
Please.
Okay.
Yeah.
We, like, the only thing we would probably need to do is just like arrange picking it up.
I'm looking for a Jaguar if you come across.
Right. But it's just a lot of stuff that I don't want to just put it in the garbage. So,
Please do.
like, I'm emptying like 5 floors, like, 200,000 square feet of space, and
And we have,
people just leave things when they go.
yeah, faculty rooms.
I know, it made me
spaces.
laugh when you said your faculty is hoarders, because if they could just see the office supplies that I come across.
Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
office supplies to an educator, like.
Right, I know. I know that.
Are there a lot of spare construction materials we can use for the high school?
Right, yeah. Yeah, that's a good idea, right?
Recycle.
An air handling unit, yeah. Right. But I will, as I go through, I will keep you all in mind and shoot you. Like, there was a really nice coffee, like a nice, like, commercial coffee maker, would have like the big, like, with the pumps on top. And their food and nutrition staff, they didn't want it. They just left it.
Terrific.
So anyways, you all just came to mind, and I want to give it to someone. and
So
not put it in the garbage.
what happens to it?
It'll go in the garbage. It'll go in a dumpster.
Oh, my gosh.
Have you tried
Yeah.
construction junction?
Yes.
Have you tried domestic violence?
I
Shelters?
have tried, so I've been working with the gentleman who's the director of our like environmental services, like our
Yeah.
cleaning crew, and he has a ton of connections, and we have tried 4, 5, 6 different groups. Brothers to Brothers
Is it
is
no
one
one
that
wants to
we.
pick it up? Is that?
That's the issue, is like the transportation. But like library shelving, I finally found like a museum.
Yes,
Yes,
please.
I know, I found a museum that wanted it. and
I'm
they
sure we
came
can rent
to
a big
Pick it
box
up.
truck if need be.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
John and James have done
We're
that.
pretty good with the jewel.
I've tried so many at Allegheny General.
So it's like an old building.
Yeah, so there's an old that was the cancer center, if anyone's familiar with their campus. The whole Cancer Institute they built a new building there for them, and they, left behind this building that the Neuroscience Institute is moving into. And when they moved to their new space, they got all new stuff, when they moved into their new building, and so much stuff has just been left behind. And I have a really hard time putting it in the garbage. And I have learned that it makes my life so much more difficult, because I try to repurpose and reuse and like take it from this job to this job, and I just end up spending hours and hours and hours of I could just put it in the
Taking
garbage, but I don't want to, so.
Good for you.
We'll
We'll send us
make that an
pictures.
easy meal.
I will.
We'll just bring our high school team with us.
Yeah.
Clean you in minutes.
Yeah, okay.
That, like,
The construction industry is very wasteful.
A whole coffee machine? I mean,
I'm serious. I will send you a picture. It is like, it has like 2, it would fit like 2 of the big carafes.
John's
And it
like,
looks like it's maybe a year old.
this institution runs on coffee.
I know where you guys will be this great. Yeah.
So anyways, yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there, and I will share.
And
some
we've
pictures
been, you've an
after.
empty building in short term, like the high school, to store
Yeah.
some of the stuff and move it around.
Field trip.
Okay.
Anything else from anyone?
Oh, sorry, I'm gonna be that person. In our next education committee meeting, can we maybe just talk about overall themes and results from the recent PSSAs? I know it's not the ultimate marker, but I'm just very curious how we did compared to pre-COVID and, okay, thanks.
Absolutely. We actually are starting this year's PSSAs next week.
Okay, thanks.
Nothing else, I think we'll have a motion to move into executive session. May I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so moved. Thank you all for joining on the live stream.